Hello and welcome to the Oracle edition of my Latin decks. This is in celebration of Hispanic or Latino Heritage Month. My name is Annette, this is Project Refine Life, and I am sharing all the decks that are inspired by or created by or themed with my Latino heritage in mind. I have 3 decks here, created by Juliet Diaz, the Seasons of the Witch. I have the Samhain, the Yule, and the Beltane Oracle. I'm not going to open them all up because I think you guys have seen them probably a million times on TarotTube. So I'm just going to show you very quickly the Samhain edition. This is a beautiful deck. All of the decks have the same beautiful art. They're all themed differently according to that particular Sabbath. There are supposed to be 5 follow-up decks to come to complete the series. The next deck is also co-created by Juliet Diaz, which is the EarthCraft Oracle. This is, to me, one of the most underrated decks out there. This is a beautiful deck. It is all earth-inspired, and the art is gorgeous. The colors, everything about this deck is just beautiful. The guidebook is beautifully written. There are offerings or meditations or rituals or invocations included for each and every card. This is such a gorgeous deck. Next is Yantra Wisdom Divination deck. And yes, it is a Yantra deck, but the creator, not one of, the creator is a Latina. And this is one of my favorite decks. I love the beautiful yantras. I love the guidebook. I have the actual book as well. This does a nice little job, the one that's included here, the little tiny fold-out guidebook. But the actual book gets into a little bit more detail, and it is just a gorgeous, gorgeous deck. The Santa Muerte Oracle. Now, I'm sure that everybody is familiar with the Santa Muerte Tarot. This is the Oracle edition. And this is a vibrant and very beautiful deck based on the energy of the Santa Muerte as well. Now, this deck, I don't know if you guys are aware of it or not, but on the back you line it up and it forms a Ouija board on the back, which is not something that I am particularly fond of. However, if you line these cards up, you know, there's several of them that make several layers where it's like a story within the back of the cards. And I don't think those were lined up correctly, but I just wanted to give you an idea. This is a gorgeous deck, and a lot of people do like working with her energy during this time. You can work with the Santa Muerte any specific time of the year. And one thing I will just say to clarify things a little bit, the Santa Muerte has nothing to do with Dia de los Muertos. Just so that you know. So if you're going to work with the Santa Muerte, it's fine, but just know it has nothing to do with Dia de los Muertos. This deck right here is such a beauty, and I know a lot of people have this deck. It is just one of the most gorgeous decks. All the images are these beautiful watercolors. There's about 44 cards, I believe, and I think that's her right there. She has indigenous roots, and this deck is just magical. And this, again, is one of those decks. Don't just work with it for your moon spreads or whatever. Work with it all the time. Sacred Mothers and Goddesses by Claudia Olivos. She is just such a wonderful, wonderful artist. I love her beautiful art. She also creates these little goddesses that I have included in some of my walkthroughs, kind of hanging out here on the side. But her art is just stunning. Look at this. She is a wonderful, wonderful artist. And again, one of these decks that is just so beautiful. The Mystical Shaman Oracle. She also has the Animal Oracle, and I think there's another one that's created by all 3 of these people, Alberto and Marciela, and then Colette Baron Reed. I know, not really a fan of CBR. However, this deck was very important to me because it's all about the 9 rites of the Munay-Ki. And Alberto and Marciela went to Peru and studied with the curanderos and the shamans there in Peru. They were given the 9 rites of the Munay-Ki with the intention of bringing them forward to the States and teaching them to other people. And that is what they're doing. That is their sole goal. And this deck discusses, you know, not within the guidebook itself. The guidebook kind of got a little bit twisted, in my honest opinion, But in looking at the cards, it really is dedicated to the 9 rites of the Munay-Ki. The Modern Spiritual Latina Oracle. I love this deck. It's so cool. She goes by Eccentric Essa online. And this deck, it's a small deck. It's, I think, like 28 cards. And it doesn't have a guidebook. It just has this little thing in the back, which lists only about 21 of the cards that just kind of talks about what's included in that particular card, things for you to look out for that are included. But this deck is like, see how beautiful it is? It's all shimmery and shiny. I love that. Oh, look at that. Frida Kahlo, the blue house. This deck is so cool. I really love the little messages on the bottom, just some quick little keywords, and then the title of the card itself. But it's beautiful, and it is based on all of my beautiful lineage and heritage. Look at that. The Enchanted Bruja Oracle. I know she has a new edition of this deck. This is on Etsy, and this little deck is a great little deck to work with during this time of year. However, you can work with it at any time. It's a beautiful little deck, and look at how cute it is. It's so witchy. Oh my goodness, I love this little deck too. I just keep saying that. I love it, but I do. I love it. It's so cute. The Toltec Oracle by Victor Sanchez. Now, I have not worked with this deck, but when I went originally, I went to order this deck and I thought, you know what? I'm going to wait. I did that whole thing. I'm going to wait. And then finally I thought, I'm going to check on it again. And then I discovered, oh my gosh, it's out of print. So I ended up buying this deck on eBay. And again, it has to do with the Mayan astrology, with the Tolkien calendar. As I said, I have not worked with this deck. I will one day, but as you can see, it has this big old giant guidebook and it is filled with information. So I will get into it at one point. I don't know when, but I will. Next is the Mayan Oracle deck, and I keep this in this little pouch here because the box was ginormous, but I first started working with this deck when I was learning the Mayan astrology based on the Tolkien system. It has the 20-day cards and the 13 number signs or cards, and then these, which I really don't use. I just use the top portion. But if you want to get familiar with the Mayan astrology, that's a nice little way of doing it, is using the Mayan Oracle deck. This deck right here, the Mesoamerican Oracle deck by Erica Buenaflor. She is a curandera, and she created this deck. Now, this is a true divinatory type of deck. It's based on the 20-day signs from the Tonapuhuali calendar system plus the Tolkien calendar system. So it's a total of 40 cards, and you just mix them together and pull them, and it gives you the divinatory meaning of the day signs. So it really has come in really handy within my practice. I've enjoyed using it so far. I love, love, love this deck. This is the Jade Oracle, and it is full of deities and symbols of ancient Mexico. It says it right there on the box. It comes with this guidebook that is in both Spanish and the other side English. It is a beautiful deck. They have this little mini deck available, and it's really reasonable for the mini deck plus the guidebook. It's like $30 or something, and I'm kind of tempted to get it just because it's tiny, and I love this deck anyway. But the art in this deck is just beautiful, and if you're interested in Mesoamerica and the deities, this is a great way to kind of start investigating it a little bit, just to look into it. It is gorgeous. Now, I'm not going to pretend to know how to pronounce these words because I don't know how, but I'm going to leave you a link to Queen Auset's video and walkthrough of this deck where her co-worker, Christina, went through every card, and it is such a beautiful walkthrough. She truly understands it, and it's just beautiful. Check it out. The newest to my collection, it is called the Eternal Souls Oracle. I saw this on Martin's Musings, and this deck is so pretty. It is beautiful. As you can see, the titles are in Spanish and English for each particular card, and the images are just so soft and gorgeous, and it pairs up beautifully with the Story Medicine Tarot. So look for a walkthrough coming of this deck really, really soon because I really am digging that deck. Next is this Mexican Lotteria card deck. Now, this deck I found on Etsy, and what I was trying to do is find an easier deck with easier images than you find on your typical Lotteria card deck, because your Lotteria cards you can use as a divinatory deck. So these are the typical Lotteria cards, which is like a Mexican bingo game. And even this particular deck, I don't know where my other Lotteria cards are, but even this, the images are toned down a little bit, but the typical images are a little insensitive in this day and age. So I was happy to find this particular deck. And she even includes a PDF of the meanings of the Lotteria cards. So found that really handy. The last two things that I'm sharing with you today, the Pacharunas, and these are all sacred Andean symbols, and they're ruins, but they all have the sacred Andean signs and this beautiful little guidebook, and it comes in this gorgeous little pouch. So next is my Milagros. So a Milagro are these little tin shapes that you use as offerings, and you can set them on your altar or take them to the church and light a candle and asking for some sort of miracle. There's all kinds of these little milagros, and you can get these at your local botanica store. But I went into a store here locally in Phoenix, and I handpicked out a bunch of these little milagros, and then I use them and I cast them. So say in your ordinary way of using them, say you're having pain with your arm or somebody is having problems with their arm, then you would offer this milagro to help with their arm. So what I've done is I've taken these milagros and I use them for casting to give me messages. So maybe I'm holding on to something when I receive this particular milagro. If I'm working with them for somebody else, then I use them in the same way. But I use them in more of a divinatory sense, or to attach them to things that I'm feeling within the body. So this is not a set that is for sale or anything. I've thought about it in the past, but I've made my own little guidebook to attach to each of these milagros. So that's another thing that I use for my divinatory readings. In my last video discussing my Latin tarot decks, there are a few decks that I neglected to include, and these are not Latin themed, but created by Latin creators. So here we have the Lioness Oracle Tarot by Alejandra Leon. This deck is absolutely stunning and one of my favorite collage decks. It is just so beautiful and such a deep deck. It is really, really a gorgeous deck. I really didn't expect from it what it has turned out to be, but it is a beautiful, beautiful deck. So that is the Lioness Oracle Tarot. Johanna Yaus Tarot. This is another deck that I forgot, and I just can't believe that I did, because this deck is by a Spanish creator, and everything is written in Galatian. Just an outstanding, beautiful deck. I couldn't wait for this edition to be released because, as usual, I dropped the ball and didn't order it on time when it was out in the first edition with the long cards. So this is, I don't know which one this is, 5th or 6th, I can't remember. But this is just a beautiful, beautiful deck. And it turns out that in accordance with my ancestry report, I actually have roots in Galatia. So very interesting when I realized that. I'm like, hey, I have a deck to match that. So along those same Spaniard lines, this particular plain deck, which of course you can always use a plain deck as a tarot deck, is from Asturias, and it is actually from Asturias. As you can see, it has this beautiful little picture in the back, And it's just your average little plain deck, but it is something that comes from Spain. It was bought for me from Spain, from Asturias. And this is a very special little deck to me. I really have not used it, but it is extremely, extremely special to me. And you can't get any more Spanish than a deck that comes to you directly from Spain. The last deck that I forgot to include in my Latin tarot decks was the Tarot by Caro. Now, although this creator is not of Latin descent, this particular deck is completely inspired by what she encountered living in Santa Barbara, California. If you have ever been to Santa Barbara, you will know that it is highly influenced with a Spanish flair and a Mexican flair. There is really good Mexican food. As a matter of fact, there's one taco stand over there that Julia Child herself favored, and it was really, really good, but it was so good. But anyhow, there is a huge Mexican and Spanish influence in Santa Barbara, and that appears on this card with the color and the flavors that are infused within this tarot deck. Those are my oracle and tarot decks that have to do with my Latin heritage and are from creators that are either of Latin descent or that are themed with my Latin heritage in mind, or are inspired by my Latin heritage. So thank you once again for watching. I appreciate you very much. Have a beautiful day, and I will see you later.